Hi everyone, welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. It's good to see you.
Ooh, these weeks fly by.
I know they do, don't they? It's mad. I think like having something you return to week after week really makes you
Mhm.
notice the time going.
That's so true.
I do. I have a 7 day pill box for the stuff that I take,
Oh
and they're
yeah.
still there. So it's like, oh my gosh, there's only 1 day left again. Another week went by. So
Oh my gosh, yeah.
grandson laughing on my phone.
Oh, so cute. So we're just gonna give it another minute or so, see if a few more people join us.
His son, and record it. So I put it as my ringtone on my phone.
Oh, that's lovely.
Makes my heart happy.
Yeah, it's such a nice way to have that present as well in your life.
Did you guys enjoy the chapter? Enjoy this week's chapter?
Enjoy is
Yes.
the right word, but it's it's that collective sadness that
Mhm.
it really explained a lot, though. I thought, really good way. Makes me go inside and think real hard about myself. So
Mhm.
This chapter always kind of gives me the EBGBs because it's just like such an entity.
Mhm. Like the way he describes it as a parasite, it's a psychic
Yeah, a
parasite and stuff.
parasite.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh.
Oh my God. But it's good. It's, what I like about his teachings is he's so detailed in deconstructing the pain body, right down to how exactly it works, the mechanics of it.
Mhm.
And what always works for me is when I know the mechanics of it, I know how to get out of it or how to come
Mhm.
back or how I even got lost in it in the first place. So even though it's so detailed, I remember one I've read this a few times, but I remember one time reading it and it was just giving me absolute nightmares. I must have been trying to get something out or something.
That's true. Actually, I had a nightmare last night. I'm wondering if it's related to
Yeah,
that.
it could be. I always say it's dusting and cleaning those dark corners.
Yeah, it brings stuff out. That's for
Yeah, it does.
sure.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and my nightmare was kind of like a really dark force as well. It was like I was kidnapped from my house and taken
Oh,
to another location and I was trying to escape. So it's
yeah.
very, very metaphorical, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It is. Because it's a dark place.
Mm. So yeah, I think we'll get started with sharing things anyway. More people might join as the time goes on, but thank you so much for joining us this week for chapter 5. And this chapter, like you were saying, it's got a lot in it. It is very heavy as well. It's a lot. It makes sense and it's a lot to confront, I think, in ourselves and in society. And just, I guess the bit I wanted to bring up at the beginning was this idea of the reversal of the pattern of thought creating emotion. In the case of the pain body, at least initially, emotion from the pain body quickly gains control over your thinking. And once your mind has been taken over by the pain body, your thinking becomes negative. He goes on to talk about, the voice in your head will be telling all these different stories, which are like sad, anxious, angry about your life, and about imaginary events or past and future. And just something, that really stuck out to me because just from a very personal perspective, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. So I had depression in sort of my early 20s, and that feeling of this thing taking over you, this feeling taking over you, and arriving one day, you know, I thought he captured like very well there. Because I always described the feeling of depression as like you wake up and it's there on your chest and it comes from somewhere, and it, yeah, then your thoughts get subsumed and completely
Yes.
changed by that. And I never saw it so well put like that, like the feeling just arriving, the pain body arriving in that way. And it really helped me to make sense of that and how you can get, like, even though we're practicing all these things and, you know, you're trying really hard to implement them, but sometimes you just wake up and you just have that emotion there that sort of infects everything in your thoughts. And that's a really difficult thing to tackle, you know, because you can sort of tell yourself, oh, it's the pain body or it's depression or whatever. But it's hard to tackle when that emotion is leading your thoughts so much. And it's hard to get yourself out of it. And that's just something that really struck me, that he really captured that very well. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. You know what? You have to be able to really catch yourself, because no matter how long you've been at it, you know, I always call it sinking myself. That, you know, if you know, you're in a difficult situation or whatever, and you get so caught up in it and you start making up what if stories that only just
Yeah.
freak you out. It's
Yeah.
like, what the heck? So yeah, you know, we have to be really good at catching ourselves and realize that it's us who's sinking ourselves. That you know, it all isn't really as bad as we think it is. But it's hard to do that when you're kind of overloaded. Yeah.
And like he says, you know, it's kind of that thing as well, like part of us wants to be in that negative state. So that's why it's so difficult to
That's
tackle, because
That's right.
you kind of sometimes just want to give in to it. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like I'm having a rubbish day and like everything's
Yes.
terrible. And there's some sort of satisfaction in giving into that, you know.
Yeah, I always call it that, my former unconscious self. I just want to participate in it so bad. And you know, it's just a matter of catching ourselves, because it's pretty easy to slip back right into those old habits. And it's things like this, if I could just plug this one more time, that keeps us grounded or rooted in being.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, for myself, every day I'm on Eckhart, and it's not an addiction. It's just this absolute comfort level, you know, and of reading other people's responses to people's situation, or just drawing on your own wisdom to answer somebody's question or whatever. That's what keeps me grounded, and that's what helps me catch myself whenever my former unconditioned self
Yeah.
wants to pop up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you put that in a really great way as well, you know, having communities like this as well, and people who are aware and who can help
Yes.
you get out of those emotions and those patterns of thinking, and sort of lift you up in that way is so important as well. And keeping on returning to it and keeping on reminding yourself. It's
Yes.
it's definitely a daily practice.
And you know, this is building on the last chapter that we talked about, and where Eckhart talks about mental health and mental illness. And in fact, 100% of humans have mental illness. It's a mental illness is the addiction to our thoughts and and that sort of thing. And some of us are just simply more addicted or more attached to it than others. And you know, that all kind of goes back into what you're talking about in terms of the depression, and how it can be just underlying at any time in a dormant stage, and can pop up if we don't stay reconnected to the whole of life, and try to catch ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, just on the first page, 129, it's talking about karma. You know, we want to reenact the past again and again. That is just our conditioning, our human conditioning.
Yeah, scientifically, they say as well, you know, everyone has a sort of natural mood state that they keep returning to. So your mood fluctuates, but it's kind of like something that you train yourself to be comfortable in throughout your life, and you're kind of constantly returning to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's their way of explaining it scientifically. Like the status quo, the thing that makes you feel comfortable. And for some people, that's a real negative state. Like with what Eckhart's saying, you know, it's the kind of thing of wanting to be negative, without really realizing it. So yeah, 100%. It's trying to get yourself out of it, constantly
Yes.
remind yourself, okay, I don't have to repeat this pattern.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's stopping that. It's being aware enough to know that it just stops here. Yeah.
On page 134, he says, I like the way he says it there. I can relate to that. Although the body is very intelligent, it can't tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. It reacts to every thought as if it were reality. It doesn't know it's just a thought. To the body, a worrisome, fearful thought means I am in danger, and it responds accordingly, even though you may be lying in a warm and comfortable bed at night. The heart beats faster, muscles contract, breathing becomes rapid. There is a buildup of energy, but since the danger is only a mental fiction, the energy has no outlet. Part of it is fed back to the mind and generates even more anxious thought. The rest of the energy turns toxic and interferes with the harmonious functioning of the body. And I think, you know, like I kind of underlining this thing of lying in a warm and comfortable bed at night, right? Like it's like you're actually in most situations, everything is okay. Everything is as it is. And even in those situations of extreme danger, like we all know, you will react how your body will intelligently react. And I know myself from like reading this chapter, I'm very well aware of the pain body inside of myself. It's definitely there. Um, and yeah, it's interesting. I think I might have mentioned it. I don't know if some of you also have read Byron Katie. I really like some of the work that she does on this. It's like where you kind of question your thoughts. So it's like you have a thought, and the thought is kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Something like this comes into your mind. And then you question it and you're like, is that true? And then, you know, you're like, well, like, no, well, I don't like how, and then it's like, how can I know if it's true? And you go through these thoughts and you question them, and you like kind of do this kind of radical turning around of these thoughts. And you could even change it to be something like, well, I want to be alone for the rest of my life, because you realize that there are some kind of positives related to it. And she has some very interesting ways of approaching your thoughts. That was just kind of a little example, but it goes deeper than that. But I do know for myself, although I love, like, of course, I love Eckhart Tolle. I liked kind of delving into the work of Byron Katie as well. He does mention in this chapter the importance of like Tai Chi and Qigong in China, and yoga. And for me, like it's absolutely essential. Like these practices are what really helps get me through a lot of the chatter in the mind, a lot of the reactivity. I was talking today with Shannon about Vipassana meditation, which is a form of meditation I try to practice regularly. And when I do, it benefits me hugely. Yesterday, I did a group sitting, and we did a 2-hour meditation. And, you know, it's just like you just sit there and you observe you just observe sensations going through your body, and like, of course it's been a while that I've been practicing this form of meditation, but you learn to not react to sensations in your body. You feel this twitch, you feel the pain in your foot, and you stop reacting, and like and then you realize, look, I didn't react, and now sometimes it stays for a while and you have to react. Of course, it's not every time that it's like complete stillness, but often you're like, oh, I didn't react to that pain in my foot. It was there for a whole 2 minutes. I just observed it. And again, this goes on what Eckhart is talking about. He's now talking about ignoring. You're observing that pain. So you observe that pain in your foot and you let it pass. You observe the pain in your body and you let it pass. So I think it's very important. I know everybody has different ways of approaching the spiritual journey, and I think they're all great if they work for you. But yeah, for me, I definitely need something, I think, that's strong. Like I remember there was a question someone asked him, and he said in one of his videos, and they said, I wake up every day and I'm quite anxious. I'm like very anxious, and I was going through this for quite a long time myself. And his response was like, you probably have a very strong pain body, so you would need to do something like qigong or something to kind of overcome that. Because I think, yes, some people's pain bodies are stronger than others, and I think mine might be one of them.
Well, me
But that's just
too.
my
There's
personal
a
experience.
stored memory in your cells of your body as well. And I think the story about the duck and just animals, when we had fight or flight and you were being chased by a bear or a mountain lion or whatever, you ran and you got that out of your body. Well, now we live in this fight or flight state that we subject ourselves to just with our thoughts. But how many people just shake it off or move? There's some really profound practices, but again, it's practice. Like you said, if you practice like on your mat, or you set up these times to meditate or physically move, or walk, whatever type of meditation or physical practice that you use, it's about taking that off the mat and into your life. And that's, I think, where the more you practice, the quicker it can come to you, although it can elude me completely. I had two opposite experiences this week. One was we had Airbnb'd our lake house that I'm at right now, to this couple with a brand new baby and a 2.5-year-old. Well, they just left in just a wreck, and there's stuff missing and all this kind of stuff. So I wrote this really thoughtful, but I was really practicing what I've been reading and observing from this, and non-attachment to any of the stuff, and how can I just be factual and no guarantee of an outcome, how she's going to respond to me and all this kind of stuff. And I was really centered going into it, and I sent this lovely email, through our Airbnb thing, and I got an instant reply back. So I knew it was a knee jerk for her. So I was giving her lots of grace and just trying to put myself in that. And she was, snotty on the return, and, we weren't comfortable, and your place is dated and all this kind of stuff. And I was able to let all that go, and it didn't even affect me. It wasn't in my body. I was like, this is me too. I know there's that part of me that's connecting with this. We're all one, and I'm staying in all of it. And so I've been there. And then 2 days ago, it was just beautiful here. So I actually got out in my garden for the first time. Well, anything physical wipes me out with the energy level that I have with the MS stuff. And I was on the ground, with a hand rake, cleaning out a flower bed. And my husband came up and started complaining about the dock, and it's not going to work where it is, and blah, blah, blah. He's all in it. And when I'm at that lowest level of my energy threshold, it spins me into this total loop, and I just went, wow, and then all of a sudden the woman's stuff bothered me, and everything comes at me like a brick wall, like you said, landing on your chest, just like everything falls on top of me, and I couldn't get myself out. And that's part of the thing that I've learned with this, the duration and where I'm at with all of this, like 99.5% of the time I can get into that, you know, non-attachment and use my practice. But there's sometimes when I just go and spiral, and a good old pity party is all that works.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I actually had something similar yesterday where I'm doing a night like degree in art, and we're doing group work at the moment. Anyone who's ever done group work at university would probably empathize that it can be a trying experience. And it's just me and another girl are just not agreeing over something, and like 99% of the time, yeah, I'm so good at like not letting it affect me. But yesterday, just you know, with other things that have been happening during the week and having to deal with other stuff, it really just stayed in me for like hours. And I was trying everything. I was doing my breaths. I was, you know, trying to disconnect from it, trying to have that sort of like, oh, compassion. And I was trying to deal with everything so diplomatically as well and be like really understanding of, but she just kept on coming back at me with really like sort of like aggressive tone. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't today. I just can't deal with this. Like, so I completely understand that. It's weird when that happens and you're just like, why can't I do it today? But I guess it's just all part of the journey.
Yeah, it is.
You're right. And
Yeah.
once they
And you
with
know
me,
what?
I couldn't get
That's
out of
when you
it.
just gotta like forgive yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I I know for me though, like even like I kind of mix between meditation and yoga and stuff, and just like one day, like for example, a yoga 1 hour yoga session, I'll come out like feeling great, and I'll be like the next day I have to do that exact same sequence again,
You're breaking up a
and
bit.
I felt like so great, and I felt so calm, and I just it's can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just sort of going fast and slow. But yeah, I think we got the gist of what you're saying.
Okay, just continue. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I completely
take-
understand as well. Like, it is that thing of some days you need extra, don't you? You need something different, or some days it's just not working. Like when you meditate, and of course, you know, I think a lot of people now are aware that when you meditate, you know, your mind just doesn't go silent. It's not just you're not just there. Not thinking anything, you know. And some days when you'll meditate, you'll be much better at connecting with that stillness. But then other days you will just have so many thoughts in your mind coming through, and it will be very, you know, trying and difficult and take much more energy to let them go and to disconnect from them, and much more patience with yourself. And
Yeah, you know, and I did we get cut off?
no, I think you're grand.
Okay. And now I forgot what I was gonna say, but I think it's you know, I also would like to say we should welcome those moments, because you know what, sometimes we can get too complacent in, oh, I finally awakened, and I've read Eckhart Tolle 6 times, and you know I'm going to be good for the rest of my life. And then the situations like that happen because, you know, because we're only still human. And those are really just practice moments. That's what I call it, you know. And when we catch ourselves and we learn from that, then we're just better going forward. We catch ourselves easier as we're going forward, and that's where we have to find forgiveness for ourselves. You know, that we slip back into our former unconscious self, and that it's still there, and that the importance of practicing all every day. Eckhart practices every day. The Buddha practiced every day to stay rooted in being, because we just don't know where we're going to get pulled out, and we don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far before we bring ourselves back.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
they're just it's just practice moments. Those little things reminding of us how we used to be.
Yeah, that's
My
so
husband,
true.
I opened up. Once I was able to pull myself out and get myself regrounded and get out of the spiral that I was in, I was able to come back and apologize and then say, how, okay, here's what I think happened to me, but I don't even know when it happens. It's like, boom, and I'm
Mm.
off and spiraling. It's just that quick. And I said, I need you to notice sometimes if I'm really physically doing something and I'm wearing myself out, please don't bring up anything negative, like a big
Mm.
problem, because
Yeah.
it takes, because I go into fix it mode and then it's like, oh, it's just a disaster. It's never going to work. We might as well just sell it all, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fine, put the dog behind the tree. We'll step on the stump. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
who are you and where is this coming from? But then I'm just witnessing myself being this and going, who is this person? Like, I'm not even identifying with myself at that point, because it's like, but what's in there that's triggered, that's in there. So it's nice to be able to go back and then grant yourself the grace, right? Because we are just human, and go, okay, so how do I avoid this situation, or how can I be proactive so that I don't twist out like this? Because it doesn't feel good, that pain body
Mm.
is really excruciating at times. And then it opens my way up to the greater collective pain body, which then I'm like, oh, and my grandchildren are doomed and the world's falling apart.
Mm.
And it just bigger, bigger, bigger. The whole, the swirl gets faster, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
So that, all of a sudden, then if I trip up, then the whole world seems wrong. Yeah, everything is wrong to me in
Yeah.
that moment. And so I have learned, though, over the years, that once in a while you do need a good pity party, and it's okay, because then you know that it will end too. That's the other thing. Every party
Yeah.
comes to an end. So I even know
Exactly.
when I'm in it that, okay, I'm way in it, and it's just got to ride itself out.
That's it. You put it like the best way possible. And knowing, like you said, in certain situations that you may get triggered or whatever, your energy is low, knowing that and telling your partner or telling the people around you, it is such a powerful, I guess, self-observation and tool, to be kind to yourself as well. By telling other people that, I think that's really beautiful and very self-aware.
Yeah. Because at one point, Sherry, you probably couldn't have caught yourself. Your former unconditioned self would not have even caught that as quick as you do now.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there's that perfectionism. I guess I suffer from a lot of that. And the doing portion of it is like, well, I know better, but I still end up there. And then that's that grace and that humanness, which isn't going to leave us. And that's why it is. And you do.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think it almost gets more painful.
Oh, can't really hear you, Cher. Something's happened.
The volume went down a bit on you. We could hear you a tiny bit.
Get out the big microphone.
I hear you now, I think.
Better?
Yeah.
Better?
I think so.
Yeah, Zoom I have a Dell computer, and Zoom sometimes cuts out on it. So I have a good microphone. But what was I saying? I don't even remember. Oh, is it that it's when you do practice so much and you've been, I've been on this journey most of my life. I mean, I'm in my 60s now. So it's like I've been doing this stuff I've been practicing yoga since I was 11 or 12 years old, just the
Wow.
physical portion of it. And then, of course, growing into the study of yoga and the reading the sutras and studying the sutras and all different types of, this is yoga. Everything is yoga the way I look at it. But practicing and then going, but shouldn't I get this by now? And then it's like, no, because I'm still always going to be human. And that's what it was really nice about this is, they're only what does it say? I gotta put my glasses on or I cannot see it. There's only one perpetrator of evil on the planet, human unconsciousness. But I think it's just being human, actually, because that's part of what we have is that free will to choose those thoughts. I guess maybe that's what it all comes down to, is you can choose your thoughts. But again, programming yourself, if you practice, how do you get back to that center? Or, my daughter is interesting because, I tell her, don't wait till your 50s to start getting this. Get this in your 30s.
Yeah.
And she always is like, well, I had this client and I had to find my center. And it's like, yes, do anything physically that brings you into that. But boy, when I trip out, and it doesn't happen more than 2 or 3 times a year. Honestly, it's just very rare that I get to that point. But it's interesting. And then I go, yeah, you're never going to stop learning.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. None of us are, I think that's also the beauty of it, because I guess if there was a finality of like, you've graduated now, a part of being human is that journey. It's the whole journey, your whole life doing that. But just going, to the movement side of things that you're talking about a lot there, and how things are programmed in the body. And I think like there's so much on that. I remember listening to I can't remember the name of this person now. I'll have to look it up. But he was like a doctor or a therapist or something, and he was talking about like how you can retrain yourself to basically retrain your thoughts, kind of what you were talking about with Byron Katie, Marie, in terms of when you notice you're having this certain thought pattern, you question it, and then you do something physical. So whether that is like touching your ear, or it could be like a more yoga, like exactly any sort of physical thing. And then when you're in situations like that, when in the the everyday life, the real world, just those little physical prompts can help you get out of that emotional takeover, and get back to your awareness of that. So that was one thing that I was listening to that I thought sounded really interesting. And it's not something I have tried to do yet, but I think it could be quite an interesting way to do that. Have a physical prompt or smell, they were saying as well, a particular scent that you always put on, like when you're meditating or yoga, and then you carry that with you and you smell it when you need to come back to that.
There's a woman named Hala Corey. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's with Sean Corn in the Off the Mat Into the World. If you've heard of that organization ever. Oh, it's yoga. They're, people go to all the yoga. I've never been to any of the yoga big gatherings or anything like that, but they teach at those. But Hala Corey does trauma-informed yoga. And I did they did something for like a week-long thing that was no cost on Zoom, like at the beginning of the pandemic, but it was about actually physically moving your body to release trauma, which we don't even realize how small things are trauma to us, and we don't even, we don't account for that it's something that's going to stick with you for a long time, even if it's just something simple, even. But just the fact of just shaking your body, it was like she had a lecture one day, and then the next day you did like a half-hour practice, and I'm a puddle crying on my mat, actually moving my body, going, wow, there's stuff, and I have no idea what it is, but it's really good to let it go. So that physical movement is so important for our being, because we are these human beings that if we don't move this body, stuff stays stuck in it. It just really does.
And
it really does, yeah.
I think like on page 143, Eckhart talks about like the collective pain body, and that every newborn who comes into this world already carries an emotional pain body. In some, it is heavier and more dense than others. And sometimes I just like to throw in like the opposite, not the opposite, but another perspective. And that he also talked about even, a child who was raised by 2 enlightened parents. Oh, there's your little buddy there. Oh my goodness. Hey. Anyhow, so he's so cute. He's such a little star already, hey, on Facebook. But anyways, but even someone who's born into 2 enlightened parents, is still raised in an unconscious world.
Mm.
So that's where that collective unconsciousness kind of comes on. But also I can give other examples of people that I know of who raised a child, pretty much an only child, and he believed he was treated as a prince, and he believed he was a prince and he could do anything. And then this young man turned 18 years old and had to go out into the world on his own. And the world did not believe he was a prince. And at 40 years old, he is still a drug addict. And I'm pretty sure his marriage failed, he lost custody of his son, his business failed, and he still is failing that many more years later because of that belief that I am a prince, but the world is not treating me this way, only in the comfort of my family. But you're not in your family when you're 40 years old still. You're out in the world.
Or at
And
least
I had
you
a
hope
net.
they are.
Pardon me?
At least you hope they are.
Yes. Well, he wasn't for a very long time, let me tell you. But in any event, another I was in another group, and someone was talking about their niece who was raised by two enlightened parents, and she was told that she could be anything she wanted to be. And now in her mid-30s, she has high anxiety because she is trying to do everything because they told her that she could do everything and anything. But so things can go to the over the top,
opposite extreme.
Yes.
Yeah, I completely understand it. So it's actually like something that they say, the millennial generation, which myself and Anne-Marie would be in, that is the sort of thing that we were told, and they do say it's led to very high anxiety among this generation, because we were all told how special we were when we were young, and how individual we were, and all of this sort of stuff. And then you grow up, like you said, in the world, then it's not like that, and you don't have the tools to be able to deal with that when you're brought up in that sort of way. And definitely, I could say from my perspective, I do feel that a lot of people, my peers, have anxiety, whether it is from that or not, but it's very common.
Well,
I think
you know what,
there's more in the sorry.
I said, it's just as unconsciously damaging as somebody who's growing up in an abusive family. Like, we all got these things to shed. They're just different layers, or they just come off in different ways.
That's it. Like every person picks up things as well, and it depends